Hi BookTube, Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library, coming to you tonight with a book tag. The book tag I was wanting to do was how to adapt a book tag. Was originally done by Seeking Stories, and Seeking Stories had tagged me in this video. They wanted me to answer the questions, and so there's 10 questions, and I thought I would go ahead and do that tonight. And down in the description, I will link the original tag for Seeking Stories. And anyway, for this how to adapt a book tag, it's all about adapting a book to a movie. And the one that I chose was A Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave. And so this is a good book. We read this with my 8th grade class in American history, and it's an autobiography. Frederick Douglass actually made 3 autobiographies. This was the first of the 3, and by far the smallest of the 3. So without further ado, here we go. Question number 1. Congratulations! You're attempting to adapt a favorite book into a movie, and a film studio is interested in financially backing your adaptation. But they want a brief summary of the story in 25 words or less. Give it all you've got in no more than 25 words. So I actually took a quote from Frederick Douglass himself to act as my brief summary. So here it is. You have seen how a man was made a slave. You shall see how a slave was made a man. So that's my summary line to hopefully hook the viewers into watching this movie. So number 2, you've secured funding, but the budget dictates that a character has to be cut. So who's out? No cheating. This must be a named character, not Goblin, number 2. Alright, so the character that I chose in the book, Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, I actually thought, and this is going to sound kind of silly, but I think Douglass's mother could be cut out of this. She's only in it for a brief amount of time. Harriet Bailey was her name, and she's only in it at the very, very beginning. And I think that you could probably use a narrator voiceover to cover the part that his mom is in. I just think you can get around that. She's not in there for very long. She doesn't stay in the whole movie, so I think you can get around it. Number 3, which scene is going to be the most difficult to adapt from book to movie script? Now I kind of struggle with this because really I don't know if any of it would be real difficult to do. But what I ended up choosing was the very end scene as Frederick Douglass starts to get on the speakers circuit and begin to spread the word of, speak for the abolition movement. I thought this would be the most difficult just because I'm also wanting to create a sequel, and I'm going to take his other autobiographies and continue this into a series. And so I need that last scene to be, it needs to be gripping. It needs to bring people back so that they come back for movie number 2. So I thought that would be the most difficult. Let's see. Question number 4. Your script is complete. Which scene do you anticipate being the most difficult to film? I think the whipping scene right off the get-go. There's a scene in the first chapter where Frederick Douglass's aunt is whipped. She's all tied up, and they strip her down and they whip her. And I think this will be the most difficult to film because I want this movie to be PG-13. I want to be able to use it in my classroom so that it you get the seriousness of the event, the brutality of it, the anguish that the slaves experience. But at the same time, I don't think it necessarily needs to be super duper gory. I think you can get the point across without the goriness of the slave beating, but yet you have to have the slave beating. I hope that makes sense. I don't think you always have to have the blood and guts to get the point across. Number 5. What themes are vital to the story? What themes are vital to the story which must not be lost in translation? And I picked out 3 themes. I thought that hope, just that, that idea that there's something better in the future, something that you can make of your life, that idea of hope, that it really carries Frederick Douglass through all of the tough times of being a slave. Just perseverance. You got to have a little something deep down to keep you going, to make you remember that you are a human being, that you do have something worth living for. So hope and perseverance kind of go hand in hand, but I also like the idea of education and just the importance of education and how education opened the doors for Frederick Douglass to succeed. Without education, I don't know if he's able to free himself and go on this, go around in the abolition movement, go around speaking and writing the autobiographies. I don't know if he's able to do that nearly as well if he doesn't get educated. I think education is extremely important. And so, number 6, casting has begun. Which actors are playing your main characters and why? So, my main character is Frederick Douglass himself. There's several slave owners, but I was going to just kind of center in on Frederick Douglass. I was talking to my daughter about it, and I was trying to think of younger African American actors that could fill this role. And the one that came to our mind was, I don't know if you guys watched the show The Rookie. We like that show in our house, and one of the cops in there, Titus Macon Jr., I believe is his name. And I think that he could play the role of a young Frederick Douglass and do it justice. I think he would do a good job. So number 7, who is going to direct your book-to-movie adaptation and why? And I got to go with the best, Steven Spielberg. I'm a big Steven Spielberg fan. He always has an attention to detail. He's accurate. He has one of the things I really like about him, he has an ability to use silence in his films, and I think that can be very powerful. And I think this is a film that could definitely use silence and take that a long ways in with the impact that it could have. Question number 8, what is the ideal length for this film? Keeping in mind that most movie studios won't release a movie longer than 3 hours. I said 2 hours and 15 minutes you'd be able to get this movie in 2 hours and 15 minutes. Like I said, it's only the first autobiography, and it is pretty short. As you can see, it's only 124 pages. It's only 124 pages, and I think you could easily get this book in 2 hours and 15 minutes. For a movie. Number 9, alas, the movie studio dictates that your adaptation is too long. A scene must go. Which one's the victim? And this is another one where I kind of struggled, and I think maybe you could cut bits and pieces out of several scenes to come up with the big cut that you got to do. You could take out some of the scenes with him on the plantation. There's lots of little things that you could probably take out and just mainly focus on the big things that happened to him in his life and cut out some of the minor stuff as he's traveling from plantation to plantation, because he had several different places he lived, or a handful of places he lived when he was younger. And I think you could just cut out a little bit out of each one and be okay. So number 10, last question. Pushback time. As the film's producer, you're allowed to select one scene which can never be cut. Which scene do you choose? Now, there's 2 parts of me for this question. I told you one of the main themes is education. And so I would say that the part that probably definitely does not need to be or should not be cut is as he learns to read and write. And when he is working with Master Ald's wife, I think that was their name. Was it Lucretia Ald, I think? Don't quote me on that. I'd have to double check. But anyway, the master's wife who was teaching him to read and write. And then as he goes out to Baltimore and he learns from the kids more about reading and writing, that's the thing that really opens his eyes to the possibilities, opens his eyes to freedom, really. And so I think you probably have to have that in there. But deep down, there is a part of me that says the testosterone's got to flow here. And when he gets in the fight with the slave breaker Edward Covey, I think that has to stay in there, because there's just this tug of war back and forth between these guys, and he ends up whipping Master Covey. And every time we read this in class, because we read it, I read it to 2 sections of my 8th grade class every year, and every time I read that, the hair on my arms stands up, and it is awesome. It is awesome. And just to really drive home this idea of what Mr. Covey does to him, and why, when he beats up Mr. Covey, why that's so important. This is from the middle of the book here. It says, "If at any one time of my life more than another I was made to drink the bitterest dregs of slavery, that time was during the first 6 months of my stay with Mr. Covey. We were worked in all weathers. It was never too hot or too cold. It could never rain, blow, hail, or snow too hard for us to work in the field. Work, work, work was scarcely more than the order of the day than of the night. The longest days were too short for him, and the shortest nights too long for him. I was somewhat unmanageable when I first went there, but a few months of this discipline tamed me. Mr. Covey succeeded in breaking me. I was broken in body, soul, and spirit. My natural elasticity was crushed. My intellect languished, and disposition to read departed. The cheerful spark that lingered about my eye died. The dark night of slavery closed in upon me, and behold, a man transformed into a brute." And so I think this is a key pivotal event when he whips Master Covey, for the simple fact that, he had this hope, this perseverance, this education, and the way that Covey treated him destroyed all of that. And he doesn't get that back until he defeats Covey. And it's kind of a turning point in the whole story, where he goes from, he had his high, his low, and now he's heading, back to the end of the book. There was kind of the climax, I guess, in the book. And I just think that's a huge part of the story. And so I think that's, to me, the part that cannot be cut. So anyway, this was my How to Adapt a Book tag. I am Bill Ruttenberg here at the Ruttenberg Library. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to like the video down below. And if you got any comments, go ahead and type those in down below. I'd be happy to discuss the book with you. Until next time, BookTube, happy reading.